Awesome. Welcome, everyone. My name is Dhruva. I'm one of the directors of the Lumiere Research Scholar Program, as well as a PhD student at Oxford. And I am so excited to welcome you all to this panel on research and admissions. We've got an amazing set of speakers today and the opportunity to do Q&A with all of them. And I'm glad to see that there's so many of you here to tune in and listen to what they have to say. Just to give you a bit of context, as most of you know, the Lumiere Research Scholar Program is a selective one-on-one research program where high school students from around the world are matched with PhD mentors from top universities in the US and the UK, where the research mentors guide them as the student writes an independent research paper. We're currently coming off on a bit of a high because over the course of this admission cycle, Lumiere alumni have gotten into every single one of the IBs, into UC Berkeley, Stanford, as well as Oxford and Cambridge. So we're super proud of our alumni, and we're so glad to have three of our alumni here to join us. So without further ado, we're going to go into today's event. It's going to start off with a set of presentations from the three students who are going to be speaking, and then passing it on to back to me for Q&A. And of course, along the way, if you guys have any questions at all, please put them in the chat. So without further ado, I'd like to pass it over to Meera Dasgupta. Meera is a student at the Dhirubhai Ambani International School, and she is preparing to go to NYU, New York University, to study politics and economics. She was part of the summer 2021 cohort of the Lumiere Research Scholar Program, where she wrote an economics research paper on trade liberalization policies in South Korea. Meera, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just start sharing my screen. Can everyone see it?
Yes.
Okay. So hello, my name's Meera Dasgupta, and I'm from Ambani, Dhirubhai Ambani International School. I'm currently in year 12, graduating in May or June. I'll be done with my IB diploma in May. And so basically, this is how I'm going to go ahead with the presentation. So before the research program, I had barely any research background apart from IB essays and economics I's and stuff like that, but it wasn't as rigorous as a research paper would be. I joined in the summer 2021 cohort, and my research mentor was Mr. Brown from Purdue University. He was doing his, I think he was doing his master's program at Purdue in economics. And after much, discussion, we came up with the topic of how did the trade liberalization policies of South Korea affect its economic growth between 1960 and 1982. It was an extremely focused and specific research question, which was because of my mentor. So in the first initial weeks, we basically discussed what the research paper types were, what I would like to pursue and what I would like to achieve from this research program. And of course, we decided on how the data analysis should be done, how I'd be specifying which research question I'll be using. Then in the final weeks, it was basically hardcore, rigorous writing process where I'd like write a particular section in 1 week, and I'd submit it to him. And in that week session, we would discuss it, and he'd like tell me how to tweak it. And that's how over all the weeks we compiled the entire research program, and then obviously the final draft and the first draft and then the final draft. And it was I'll be talking about my learnings now. So firstly, I did my research paper in economics because that is one of the subjects I'm going to be majoring in the coming years. And the first thing and the most important thing that I learned was the application of economics in real life. It allowed me to gain a polished and mature perspective on policies in particular, and also in specific on how policies over like a long term, over a span of couple of years, change and evolve and have varied consequences and repercussions on the economy. Secondly, research experience. So all the fellow IB students will know that I think now you all must be getting started with your extended essay. And doing this research program definitely helped me prepare for my extended essay. I was definitely not as lost as I would have been without this research program, and I was more honed in my skills of research, in terms of writing out what I know, in terms of paraphrasing, in terms of footnoting or citing all the ideas that I've gotten from different sources. And obviously, this has also helped me a lot in my university admissions and applications. So I'll be talking about that now. So these are like the four ways I used the research program in my university application. Firstly, in my Common App and my additional information essays, I did mention very explicitly the research paper, because it does impress any, I would assume, any admissions officer, because it does provide uh, evidence of experience and extreme interest in the subject, and that obviously impresses the admissions officer in terms of your passion in the particular subject you want to major in. Secondly, the activity section. Obviously, you know that the activity section is meant to be in terms of importance. So this was actually, I think, the first or the second activities that I'd mentioned in that section, and it was definitely, that was obviously because it was probably the most educative and the most intensive activity that I had done over the course of 2-3 years. Thirdly, for UK admissions, in the major specific essays, this was one of the research program was, I think, the activity or the personal engagement aspect that I elaborated on the most, because it does provide with a lot of, as I said, evidence of your dedication to the subject and how dedicated you are in pursuing that subject in the future. Furthermore, it does provide with experience and prior engagement that you've had with the subject as well. And lastly, interviews. I did only a handful of interviews because, I mean, thankfully I got into my ED university, which didn't require an interview. So the couple of interviews that I did, like Stanford and Northwestern, they did ask me about my one of the activities or one of the experiences I've had, which has been most educative, and that is when I talked about the research program, and it did help me sort of express myself in what exactly I want to achieve, even in university life. And it definitely helped me gain perspective, not only in the subject, but also in trying to decide on what I want to pursue in the future in university as well. So, thank you.
Thanks so much, Mira. We'll be back to you with questions. But before
Yeah.
that, passing it over to Ria. Ria is joining us from Hong Kong, where she's a senior at the German Swiss International School. And she's preparing to head this fall to the University of Pennsylvania to study astrophysics. She was part of the spring cohort of 2021, where she wrote a research paper in astrophysics about the growth and evolution of the universe. Over to you, Ria.
Thank you. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, I'll just jump right into it. So my previous research background, it is non-existent. I had done research before, of course, for school projects and stuff like that, but I had never really done anything to the extent of writing a whole research paper. So the Lumiere experience was completely new to me. My mentor was a woman called Sana Bimani, who's currently pursuing a PhD at Yale. She's super experienced with astrophysics. She's involved in a bunch of projects that I can't even hope to understand yet. So she was a really great choice for me. She was also super friendly and helpful when it came to answering my questions, and I had a lot of questions. So for me personally, astrophysics wasn't really an area that was taught at my school at all. So her knowledge and experience was very valuable for me. The first few weeks of the program were all about exploration. The field of astrophysics is huge. So to start, me and my mentor began to narrow down which specific parts of astrophysics I wanted to explore further. I started by asking her about her work and what she found interesting, and we moved from there. She'd bring up topics that she'd studied in the past, and if I found them interesting, I'd ask questions about them and learn more. During the times we weren't meeting, she'd give me some papers to skim through and see if the content was intriguing, and if it was, we'd expand more on the topics covered. After learning more through this exploration process, I ended up being very interested in quite a few topics, such as black holes and the cosmic microwave background. And eventually, we ended up figuring out a research question that would allow me to delve into all of these topics. My research question ended up being, what were the initial conditions of the universe that permitted the growth of the structures we see today? So basically, my research paper was an outline of the timeline of the universe from the Big Bang until now. The first step, once I had formulated my research question, was to create my outline. For me, this was pretty easy. The timeline of the universe had already been divided up officially into eras, so I just made each era a separate section. Once I had my outline, I started to research. The way I did my research process was by reading a lot of papers and taking notes for each section. I took a lot of notes. I'm pretty sure by the end of it, I had maybe 3/4 of my paper just written out in the form of bullet points. Once I'd made enough notes, I'd convert them from bullet point format to actual paragraph writing. I relied on my mentor a lot to make sure that what I was writing was clear and readable and made sense. And I also shared parts of my drafts with friends and family members. That was really useful because they weren't very informed on the topic I was writing about, which meant they'd be able to tell me if what I was writing made no sense at all. So doing this program really helped me learn a lot about my subject. In order to write my research paper in an understandable manner, I really had to gain a thorough understanding of my topic material, which is what my mentor really helped me with. There were so many concepts that were near impossible to grasp just from reading research papers and Googling, but my mentor found ways to explain them in simple terms, and that really helped me gain a good understanding of how these concepts work. Taking part in this program has granted me a lot of very valuable skills about writing research papers in general. One such skill was being able to look at a research paper that's basically a wall of text and parse out the useful information from there. Oftentimes, the papers I was using would be maybe 80% useless to me just because the language was so convoluted and there was so much math and I could not understand any of it. But getting that useful 20% out of there became a really, really valuable skill, and I'm sure will continue to be very important when I go to university. Speaking of university, I'll take a moment to say that doing this program bolstered my university applications like crazy. It's probably one of the main things I talked about on my resume, and I'm really grateful I can mention it because the experience it gave me really helped show universities that I was a committed student who was really eager to learn astrophysics. So doing the Lumiere experience helped me a lot, both specifically in the university admission process and in life in general. I think the skills I've gained through this program will be immensely useful to me in the future, and I'm really happy I did it. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ria. That was delightful to hear. Congratulations on 10. I will now pass it over to Gurjeet. So Gurjeet is a grade 12 student at SS International School in Karnal in India. He's from a small village named Churni Jagir, and he did the Lumiere Research Scholar Program on full financial aid, doing research on agricultural technologies. He's been admitted to both Princeton and Dartmouth with a full financial aid package and will likely be attending Princeton University this fall. Gurjeet, passing it over to you to tell us a little bit about your experience before we dive into Q&A.
Thank you, sir. To start my Lumiere experience, it was like very good. It was the first time I was doing the research experience, the research program on Philip. I submitted this research paper to another mentor, or you can say my school teacher, and she was very impressed by this. She connected me with her fellow PhD student who helped me make another research paper in another subject. My mentor was Miss Mora Slocum. She's a third-year PhD student at University of Pennsylvania in environmental sciences. She was really, really helpful. I actually am from a farming background, so that helped me a lot in doing research in agricultural sciences. And she also had a lot of knowledge about agriculture. She had been to Africa, etc., and also she had lived on the farm. So whenever I used to ask her very technical questions about farming or any specific crop, she used to answer with very ease, and her answers were really good. That helped me like elaborate every single part of the research paper. So in the first few weeks, it was all about explanation. I knew basically like what I wanted to do, but not with that much clarity. I knew I wanted to do something related to biology and agriculture, but not with that much clarity. Then I came to know about something related to like there was a lot of like fish farming is like getting really popular in my area. So after visiting a couple of farms, I found out that the fish waste was not being used correctly. Like it was being dipped in the landfills and there was no cost effective solution for it. So after finding out that, the second problem I found out was that chemical fertilizers were really bad. I have been like reading papers and other news like water was polluted due to this and many other things. So what I did was that I combined both of the problems and derived a solution. So I derived a fish waste derived organic fertilizer, which I named as Farmosafe, which was used on rice crop, and the results were equivalent or much better. It improved the crop yield by 29 to 34%. So I tested it on around 50 acres of land, and like the results were really good. I'm currently trying to take it to another level. So regarding the research question, my mentor was very helpful, and at the last, after reading many research papers and meeting and contacting many professors from local Indian agriculture of rice institute in my local area, I was able to decide that my question will be, what is the impact of fish waste derived organic fertilizer on the yield of rice crop, basically CSR 30, which is known as basmati rice, and PR 114 variety of hybrid rice. Carrying out the research.
Hi, Gurjit, would you mind speaking up just a little bit? I think someone in the audience is having trouble hearing you. Thank you.
Okay. So experience while carrying out the research paper, it was, I first met during the first 2 weeks, we were able to introduce ourselves and she was able to like, we dived into explanation and were able to find out which topics we would do and which topics were very technical, which couldn't be done without lab, and lab was not available to me. So after that, I started reading research papers, and after reading 12 research papers, we started finding out question and then derived solution. And during the whole process, I actually have this notebook right now. I used to take notes during every lecture, during every reading of the research paper, during every YouTube video. And that helped me a lot. Like basically, I can say that Lumiere was really helpful. Then during my research, like Lumiere helped me a lot during my college applications. So first one was that I mentioned it on my first priority activity. It was ranked first on my activity list, and it was Lumiere Research Scholar Program. The second thing was that Mora Slocum, my mentor, she wrote me a very sweet letter of recommendation, which helped me get into such prestigious universities. Third one was when I submitted my portfolios for evaluation to universities, I also used Lumiere Research. I only used Lumiere's research paper, and the professors were really impressed by it. The next thing was I represented my research paper at the Irish National Fair, where I was one of the 100 finalists selected to represent our research at the Irish National Fair. And the next thing was that I was, with that much knowledge, I was able to carry out another research at the New York Academy of Sciences as a junior member. Thank you for listening.
Fabulous. Congratulations, Gurjit. Your story is incredible, and congratulations on all of your successes. I want to bring in Sam at this point. So Sam is absolutely fantastic. He has been serving as a university counselor in Vietnam and China for the past 5 years. Prior to that, he served as an assistant director of admissions at Dartmouth College, taught elementary school students in Taiwan through the Fulbright English Teaching Assistantship program, and was a Chinese government scholar in Shanghai. He holds a BA in sociology and Chinese from Williams College. And Sam believes that with the right amount of intention, reflection, and soul searching, the university application process can be a life-changing, trajectory-altering experience for students. So Sam, I want to ask you, given your experience, particularly as an admissions officer, but also as a counselor, I'm curious to know, in the students that you've seen who've done research at the high school level, what are some ways that research has been used effectively, and what are some ways that which are situations in which it works less effectively? And of course, if there's anything that these students have done that stood out to you, would love to hear that as well.
Yeah, thanks for the wonderful, flattering introduction, Dhruva. And hello, everybody. Actually, if you're able to turn on your screens, will some of you turn on your screens? It's just odd to talk to a sea of black screens. Oh, I appreciate the brave soul. Thank you so much. Awesome. Yes, I work at a high school as well, so I know the landscape quite well. In terms of the research and how I would say admissions officers might read it, or when I used to work at the admissions office at Dartmouth, how I used to at least interpret it is it wasn't necessarily about what exactly the research was on, just because you have to understand that admissions officers in the United States are generalists. Like, for example, if I were to just read a research paper delivered by any of these students, I doubt that I would understand, 90%. So it's really important, I think, to contextualize your research in terms of the story that you are trying to tell in your application, either as an intellectual story or how it can be weaved into your personal narratives. For some of you, as I am sort of saying these, you might be like, oh, like, yeah, that makes exactly sense. For some of you, it's like, nope, like this has nothing to do with my personal life. It is just my academic and intellectual interest. So it really depends on the situation. But again, I think the most important thing is providing context for the type of research that you're providing.
Got it. And is that context best provided through one of the essays, either the Common App or supplemental essays, Sam, or are there other ways of doing that as well?
Yeah, I think as some of the student speakers have already said, it very much naturally can come up in an essay, whether that be for your main Common App essay or for one of your supplements, just because you get the voice to be able to sort of share your thoughts and your learning processes about either the research process or the topic itself, right? So I think it makes sense for you to absolutely bring it up in your essays to let the admissions officer know that you have this, you have an intellectual quality, right? And you're willing to go outside of the topics that are available at your high school, such as astrophysics, and be able to, in your own words, articulate why your research mattered to you. And the reason doesn't really matter. You just need to be able to articulate that.
Got it.
Another way, sorry, I'll just share one more thing. Another way that you might present your research is on the additional information section. I think one of the students mentioned including a resume. And on that resume, you are able to sort of talk about the research a little bit more if you want to, or some students I know add an abstract or even a website. Although I don't think a website, admissions officers don't have time to individually go click into websites. So I think either a really well put together resume or just an abstract, I think would be fantastic.
Awesome. So I know that there are, at least for a couple of the students here, it is closely linked to what they did. And I want to check in on that. Sylvia, I'm going to pass it over to you. I know that you were engaging with astrophysics even before you started the Lumiere program, and then you did some really cool things with the paper after as well. So could you walk us through what those were and whether you talked about any of that in your application?
Yeah, sure. So before Lumiere, I had actually done a summer program at Columbia University to do with astronomy and astrophysics. Unfortunately, because of COVID, it became online, but it was a really valuable learning experience. And I think it probably is the thing that got me super hooked on astrophysics, and it's what made me want to learn more about it. And I did mention it in my resume and a couple of my supplemental essays, just as I did with Lumiere. And the research paper itself, I linked it actually in my Common App and in my and in a few of my supplemental, like sometimes they let you put additional documents on. I linked it in a couple of those places. I also started a physics society at my school. I basically organized a bunch of events around school to get people interested in physics. All of this stuff went on my resume, of course. And I also started a blog, which I was really proud of. I basically wrote about anything and everything I found interesting to do with astrophysics. And I got quite a few subscribers. Like I talked about things like black holes, absolute zero, like a whole bunch of stuff, basically. And all of it went on my resume. And I think, yeah, all of that, in addition to Lumiere, it helped solidify the idea that I really, really loved astrophysics, which is what I'm studying. So that's good.
Fabulous. Thank you, Ria. The other student that I want to turn to, Gurjeet, you did your research on agriculture, and you also personally grew up in a village as well. And I'm curious how those two interacted with each other. It seems to me that it does stem, your research stemmed directly from your personal experiences. Is that true or not? Did you talk about that on your application? Would love to hear a bit more about that.
Yes, sir. It stemmed from my agricultural background only. Due to that opportunity only, I was able to see these two problems, and due to the background knowledge, I was able to mix up these two problems to find one solution. And I definitely used it in my essays. It was like a major theme to my application. I portrayed the story of a village boy who saw a problem, found an opportunity, and through Lumiere, he was able to provide a solution which was cost effective as well as nationally represented at Irish National Fair and others. It definitely provided a good theme to my application, and I think due to Lumiere only I am here at Princeton. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Gurjeet. And I think that's such an authentic and powerful story to tell. Sam, anything else on this sort of contextualization and tying into personal life piece before we move into the next section?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just like writing down notes because I think it's so cool. Like Ria and Gurjeet, I don't even know you both, but yeah, you guys are super cool. It's really nice to meet you both.
And nice to meet you as well.
Yeah. The sort of when you look at Ria's research versus Gurjeet's research, I guess the phrase that I'm thinking of is the research for the knowledge or is research for the solution, right? And for Ria, it seemed like the astrophysics is sort of a theme that sort of seems to emerge. Like she went to astrophysics camp and then she started an astrophysics club and then she did astrophysics research and she wrote an astrophysics blog. There's like astrophysics peppered into sort of all parts of her application. Was your essay about astrophysics by chance, Ria?
No, actually, my main essay was not about astrophysics. I thought it would be good to write about something else to show I'm a well-rounded student.
See,
a lot of my supplementals were astrophysics. Though.
Yeah, so Ria is astrophysics and something else, right? So like multiple ways to make her application give a little bit more dimension to her application to really, let the admissions officer know that her astrophysics interest is quite deep, right? But that also she has other interests outside or that she has other musings outside of just astrophysics as well. And for, Gurjeet, this just ties into your narrative so well. I like really want to read your essay. I think you said it perfectly and beautifully. Yeah, you were a quote village boy, you saw a problem and you decided to provide a solution. I'm really glad that you chose Lumiere as the conduit to that solution. But there again is a narrative for how research was used in Gurjeet's story, which, as Dhruva said, is inspiring, right? So totally different types of research, but it still works both ways, right?
Thanks, guys, for sharing that. I'm going to switch tracks a little bit. So Ria used her paper to set up a club at school, to write posts for her blog. Gurjeet, you submitted this to the Irish Science Fair, which is India's equivalent of the Regeneron Science Fair. I'm curious to know, and now I'm going to turn to Meera, did you consider doing anything with your research? In particular, did you consider publishing your research? And then Sam, I'm going to ask you more about that and what role publication plays in the application process as well. Samira, first, over to you.
Yeah, so I did actually consider putting it in a journal or, submitting it somewhere for publication. But then um, it does require a lot of time commitment, which I'm not sure whether I was going to be able to do. And secondly, I sort of looked at the entire picture about why I wanted to do the research program. And it was because of like the experience that I wanted to gain and like the knowledge, basically the knowledge that I wanted to sort of leave with for university or for the rest of the academic year. And I think doing like putting it in a competition or like trying to publish it in a journal just didn't like sit right with me for some reason. And that's actually why I decided not to go ahead with it. But in hindsight, I felt like if I had gone ahead with it, I feel like I would have like enjoyed it a lot better and it would have made my research paper more refined because obviously additional work is required, but I don't regret it.
That's a really thoughtful answer. And Sam, I'm going to turn to you now. I feel like publication is a big black box in the minds of a lot of people. Is it common for high school students to publish? Is it necessary for high school students to publish? Is it useful for high school students to publish? So would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I just see the sort of being published as, you have vet from an outside source that has some authority on this field, right? But at the same time, I think what admissions officers really appreciate and perhaps value more than just getting sort of that vet of approval is how you talk about it or how you have reflected over your research experience, again, about the topic or about the process itself. I think university admissions officers understand that not everybody sort of even knows that, getting published is a thing. If again, I don't think it will ever hurt to get your research published, but I don't think it will, again, like help tremendously if you're unable to like talk about it and weave it into the tapestry of your application.
Got it. And of course, there are different levels of publications as well. So there are high school level journals like the Journal of Student Research or the Columbia Junior Science Journal. There's peer-reviewed journals that academics publish in. And then, of course, there are pay-to-play journals where you give them some money and they publish you in a legitimate sounding journal, which inevitably ends up being full of grammatical errors and really, really awful. So I'm curious to know how admissions officers navigate that the fact that there are different kinds of publications and one publication is not equal to another.
Yeah, so admissions officers, I would say, will spend considerable amount of time doing research on actually what types of journals these are. Again, yes, is this a sort of pay for all, sort of pay to publish kind of journal, or does it go through a rigorous selection process? And I would say in the experienced admissions officers' minds, they will have a few lists of these journals that they have sort of in their arsenal of knowledge. And if they see that name pop up on your application, then they will make sure to note that. And having seen sort of the journals that Lumiere students are published in, I can say that, yeah, these are all really reputable journals that have, clout and have expertise.
Lovely. Thank you so much for that. And of course, if there are any questions, feel free to message me in the chat maybe, and I can call on you maybe as we go along or towards the end, but please feel free to shoot me messages in the chat. That'd be much appreciated. I want to switch tracks a little bit and ask about that mentorship relationship. So this is turning to all three of you guys. Gurjeet, I know that Maura wrote you a recommendation letter. I don't know about the other two of you, but I'm curious to know if having a mentor changed how you think about the application process. Did you talk to them about your applications at all? Did that mentorship relationship play any role beyond the recommendation letter?
Yes, sir. I think like the letter of recommendation was like very important for my application. After doing the research paper, the letter of recommendation focused on the connection between me and Mora, the professional communication. It also focused on my knowledge and my background knowledge for my biology field. It also provided credibility for my research work and my research paper, which I hope admission officers really like.
Via and Mira, anything from your basis?
Well, beyond the recommendation letter, I think the main thing my mentor did for me is really concentrated my interest in astrophysics. It's a general thing, and it affects like me and my life, not really much to do with university admissions, except for the fact that through talking to her and her work, I kind of got an idea of what I want my life to look like in like 10 years, 20 years. And I was already interested in astrophysics, obviously, but learning more and more about the subject and seeing what her life is like just made me grow to love it more. And I think that definitely came out in like my essays and stuff, which helped a lot.
Yeah, for me too. I think apart from just economics advice, and discussions as well, he did help me. Mr. Brown did help me a lot in university, like application profile building in total. So one of the most important advices he'd given me was that you need to aim for depth instead of breadth, in terms of you need to have like focus in one subject, and all your activities should line up to whatever you're applying for, which major. Apart from that, even like with research writing, he recommended a book to me, which it's a really nice and petite book, which helped me a lot in writing the entire essay. And apart from that, I think actually Mr. Brown, so usually I think the typical way to do the mentorship is having one meeting for 1 hour per week. And with Mr. Brown, we actually had 30-minute meetings twice a week so that we could be in touch more often. And he did help me in terms of apart from like the academic sense, he gave me a lot of advice about what economics is in university and the different sort of courses that are available. And it was a really fun experience with him.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Mira. And I think that brings us well to the question that Ramya put in the chat, which is, so Lumiere is a mentored research opportunity, but there are other research opportunities as well. And Sam, the specific example that Ramya is talking about is the A-Levels has a Global Perspectives program, where in the 12th grade, students do a 1-year independent project. And I guess in the IB, there's the extended essay, which is a year-long research paper as well. So how would an admissions officer view a global perspectives essay or an extended essay versus something like an independent research project through Lumiere? Is there added value? If just to pick one or the other, would love to know your perspective on that.
Yeah, I think this is a great question. And I think the best answer would be it depends, right? It depends on how you decide to present your application. I think all admissions officers know that international A-Levels as well as IB sort of has this built-in research component into their curriculum, right? And that all students will be doing research on their own. That being said, I think because not all of the schools that offer these curriculums have the human capital to provide one-on-one research for all of these students, right? Doing a program like Lumiere is just, I think personally, a way to further your interest on the same subject matter that you decided to tackle in your research for the A-Levels or IB, or explore a completely new topic altogether. And I think, yeah, there is, I would say that there's not really a negative perception. And I guess this is speaking to Ramya's second question. about the it being perceived as because it's a paid program, it is negative. I don't think so. There are club soccer leagues or other opportunities that I think students will pay for if they see the value in it. And for the students who see value in doing independent research and getting one-on-one feedback from an expert as they build that territory of knowledge, I think, yeah, it's an investment. And again, the provision of context and how you are choosing to let your research be a part of your story is the most important factor.
Awesome. And I was curious, I wanted to check in with the students as well. So Mira and Gurjeet, did you, when writing about the Lumiere paper, did you talk primarily about the research? You mentioned the program and its structure as well. I'm curious to know how you approach that question in your application. So Mira, maybe you first and then Gurjeet.
So in my Common App essay, I just talked about the research paper experience, but in the activities and the additional information section and some of my supplements as well, I sort of elaborated on how like Lumiere, the program is an exclusive program which has one-on-one mentorship. And I did talk about and describe how that sort of strengthens my ability to, challenge myself in the subject and throughout the research writing program.
Gurjeet?
Yes, for me, it was basically, I explained my research in the basic research question or the activity question regarding the Lumiere program. I used the additional information section as Sam sir told. I first provided a link to my research paper, email of my mentor. Then I wrote about the program, how it helped me, what I gained from the program. I also wrote that with Lumiere, I feel confident in my ability to cover, like for Princeton, I wrote like I can make a thesis, which is a graduation requirement for AV degree.
That's really clever. Yeah, I forgot that Princeton requires all of its undergraduates to write a thesis. So that's a really cool way of pointing out why you're a good fit for that. Also, Ramya, does that answer your questions? Did you have any follow-ups on either of those? Okay, cool. Sam, we have another question in the chat where none of these students here, unfortunately, can answer this because all of them are pursuing academic majors or planning to pursue academic majors which are related to their research. But what happens if a student changes their mind? If they do research in a particular subject, say they're doing research on psychology and then are planning to major in economics or English or something else, is that research still helpful? How would you talk about it in the application process?
Yeah, it's is the student talking about how when the student goes to university, they will sort of likely pivot their majors?
That's right. So the research that they did when in high school was in psychology, but they, in their application, are talking about how they want to study economics or English at university. So given that, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Again, I think research is definitely about depth, right? But I think it also can be about breadth, right? You don't necessarily have to be like, I'll just pull Ria in again for an example. Like astrophysics can be just one part of her life. I mean, for Ria, it's it seems to be a huge part of her life, right? But if Ria wanted to do her research paper through Lumiere on sociology or gender studies, of course she can do that because she is not astrophysics and astrophysics is not her. So you can definitely bring in research as a way to expand your interests or try out a new field that you have always been interested in, but have never had the opportunity to study it. Thanks, Ria, for
the example. I just wanted to check if the person who asked the question, they had any follow-ups or if anyone else had any follow-ups on this. I guess a related question, which I'm also curious about, which a lot of people ask about. And I guess Mira, since you're doing the IB, you can speak to this. Is would I guess what did you do? Were your IB extended essay and your Lumiere paper on the same topics? Were they on different topics? And how did that play out in your application process?
So I'd started working on my extended essay the May of 2021, which was like a couple of weeks before the Lumiere program started, and I was doing that in politics. And I'm going to be majoring in economics and politics, so I didn't want to like do both the research papers in one subject. So I decided to split it, and I decided to do my politics, my IB extended essay in politics, and my research paper in economics. And I think it was a very fulfilling experience. I think I would have gotten quite annoyed with myself if I'd done both papers in one subject.
Got it. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. Ria, in comparison, you did both your IB extended essay and Lumiere on the same, not same subject, but same field. Is that right?
My IB extended essay was actually world studies, which meant it was two subjects, physics and econ. And yeah, I guess broadly it was like physics, but it was more about mechanical physics than astrophysics. So yeah, there was relation, but like not that much.
Got it. Awesome. So we have, I guess, Mira, just to follow up on that, we have a question in the chat which says, did you do your personal project in MYP related to economics or politics too? And does it make sense to have a related personal project? I guess just to add a bit of context, we can tell us what MYP is and then answer the question.
So so IB diploma program is like a diploma program, but IB only applies to 11th and 12th. MYP is the middle year program, I think, and that applies to sort of 9th and 10th, I think. So I apologize, but I did IG before I started IB, so I didn't have the MYP personal project. But I think it just depends. Like, if I may answer this question, I think it just depends on your interests. My interest when I was in IG definitely grew from, like, I was trying to become a pilot at one point, but like I found my interests in politics and economics later on. And as long as you find your passion and your identity in like what you want to study, it doesn't really matter when you begin. Obviously you shouldn't like begin now, but your MYP, it would be nice to have like sort of long-term interest in one particular subject, but I don't think it matters that much.
Awesome. And Ria and Gurjeet, did either of you do an MYP? No.
No, sir. I went to a local village school.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't know what an MYP is.
Got it. Unfortunately, Vanika, we might have to do another panel for that question. So stay tuned for the next Lumiere session. But Gurjeet, there's a question for you from Ramya, which is, could you tell us a bit more about Junior Academy, what you did there, and how that varied from your Lumiere work?
So I was part of a team which focused on majorly related to waste management and agriculture. So my project was named as Eutrofix, which simplifies the work we are doing. We are solving eutrophication, Eutrofix. So there we developed a plan where we used to measure how we can measure cost effectively measure the eutrophication level of a lake, which chemicals we can add, how can we reach out to the people of the villages, because majorly the eutrophication I have seen is done in villages or the ponds which are left still. So how can we communicate with them, which are the most cost effective methods, and these. Then second thing would be like in Junior Academy, we worked in a team of 6+1, 6 students plus one mentor. And the students were international. Our mentor was from India only. She was from Lucknow. And then the topic was decided with all of our consent. Like we all put in ideas and then we developed a question, then a plan. But for Lumiere, it was like one-on-one conversation, which like mattered a lot. Second thing was that the mentor was from an international university, which was really, really helpful. And then that's from us. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Sam, we have a question from Hasib, who's a Lumiere Alum. which is what is the first things that you look on an application? And I guess this could be useful just if you can walk us through what the admissions officer experience is like. So just walk us through quickly what happened. So you're an admissions officer. It's March. Yeah.
Yeah. The first thing that I look on an application is the name. And then after the name, I'm sure that all admissions officers do it slightly differently, but the way that I was trained on how to read was to look at the student's school profile and the high school transcript first, just so that if it was a school that I didn't really hadn't heard before, or we hadn't had applicants from before, then you could sort of start to understand the context of where the school is. Is it a parochial school? Is it a public school, et cetera? And what sort of the curriculums that they offer. And then look at the transcript to look at the students, what sort of rigor of courses did they take? And then how do they do in them? Never actually looked at GPA, much to some students' surprise. It's really about the transcript, not the GPA. You can't compare apples to oranges. And then I think I went probably to the teacher recommendations, just because I was sort of on the still academic trajectory. So what are the teachers saying about the student and about their academic and intellectual qualities? And then I would move on to the counselor recommendation as well as the essays. And then I think what did I do with the activity section? Probably either looked at it at the end or in between.
And how much time does an admissions officer usually spend with an application? And then once you've read through it, what are the next steps there?
Yeah, when I first started, I was given 15 minutes. Or that was the recommended time for recommendations in an hour. And then as I became more seasoned over the months, it grew to 5 an hour. So about 10 to 12 minutes an application.
Got it. And then once you've read through it, would you sort of make a recommendation, which is like pass? Like what were the next steps after that? Just to walk us through the rest of the process for anyone who isn't.
Yeah. The next part was you were asked to make a decision, not as a final decision, but as one of the decisions, because each file is read by multiple people. And I had the opportunity to sort of shoot it to the next reader, or to put it either to shoot it up or not shoot it up. That's it.
Awesome. And then if you did shoot it up, it then got evaluated by a second reader, and then you guys all got together as a group and looked through all of the applications. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, when actually, at least at Dartmouth, we shot it up to the dean of students. We thought it was a really excellent application. And he did the second review and made the final decision for that student. Otherwise, another admissions officer came and did a second read on the application.
Cool. Thanks so much for the context. I suspect some people probably knew that, a lot of people probably didn't. So exciting to hear that. We have time for maybe one or two more questions. So Rohan's asking, between, if a student had to choose, I guess to rephrase this question, between focusing on research, personal projects, community service initiatives, or something else in their application, do you have a recommendation for what they focus on? And I already warned him that the answer is likely to be, it depends, but I will let you say it anyway.
I'm going to give a very admissions officer answer, which is holistic review, right? Yeah, and the true answer is there is no one part of the application that matters more than the other. I would say they equally matter.
Awesome. Do we have any last questions? Otherwise, I will pass it back to the students to have the last word. And maybe we can go in the same order that we spoke in, which is, as you look towards the fall, what are you guys most excited by? And how do you imagine that research is going to play a role in your undergraduate career, or at least freshman year, if you can look that far? So I will pass it to Mira to kick us off.
Yeah, so as I said before, I'm looking forward to going to NYU to study politics and economics. And obviously, like, with the help of all the myriad of things I've learned at the Lumiere research program, I'm gonna be able to hopefully have an easier trajectory in writing all the research papers in both subjects, and hopefully I'll enjoy NYC and NYU equally. And yeah, I just really look forward to just studying more and like learning more.
Good luck on your pilot exam.
Thank you. I'll fly your next plane.
Thank you so much, Mira, and congratulations again. Ria, over to you.
Yeah, well, I'm going to the University of Pennsylvania, and something I've already looked at is that it has a general education curriculum. And one of the things I have to take is like a university writing seminar kind of thing. And basically, I already have experience with like university writing, because that just means writing research papers, and I have done that with Lumiere. So it's definitely going to be helpful. And just like in the future, the foreseeable future, I'll probably be writing a lot of papers, assuming I keep doing astrophysics, which I'm probably going to. And yeah, like I said, I've developed a lot of skills just in terms of like getting information out from like research papers and formatting it in a way that I can understand and other people can understand. So I think this process has definitely helped me like do all of that stuff.
Congratulations again, and good luck. And Gurjeet, over to you for the last word.
Yes, sir. So I'll be attending Princeton University for the fall, and I'm really excited about the people, the international students I'll meet there. Secondly, I'm really excited about my major. I hope I'll major in biology and the research opportunities available there. And I have Lumiere with me, and the university level writing and experience and communication with an international mentor that I got. I hope it will really help me in my freshman year to get a job at a lab and increase my experience and expertise in my level field. And hopefully one day I will also do PhD. Thank you.
That's lovely. And Gurjeet, there are 6 Lumiere alumni that got into Princeton this year. So hopefully you have some friends as well when you enter. Thank you so much to everyone who attended. A quick thank you to Avni on our team who helped put this all together and managed all the logistics. Thank you to Sam for your insights and wisdom and warmth and kindness. And of course, to all 3 of you students, you guys are absolute superstars. We were so lucky to have you in the program, and you're going to go on to do great things. So thank you for sharing your stories with us, and see you all at the next one of these sessions.